What cases do you guys want to discuss at today's conference?
Well, I have two, the McDonald's and the Sanchez family.
I want to see if anyone has ideas for additional housing resources for Juanita Robinson, but we can talk through that after we staff Julie's cases.
Okay, sure. Remind me to talk with you about the new supportive housing program at New Light Mental Health, by the way. It's not the right fit for Ms. Robinson, but I want to make sure you understand the eligibility criteria so you can assess whether it's the right fit for any of your clients. Julie, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Sanchez family. So I met with Celia yesterday, and the financial strains are really starting to get to her. Having Roberto, so that's Mrs. Sanchez's nephew, having him live with her has increased the financial pressures on Hector as the family's earner. And Mrs. Sanchez is really worried that their income is not going to stretch far enough to meet all of their needs. We talked about the family applying for SNAP, but Mrs. Sanchez is sure that Hector would never agree to apply for food stamps. It's really frustrating because I understand that he's hardworking and he's proud, but the food stamp program was designed to help families just like them access needed food assistance, and there's no reason why this family shouldn't get that help. I'm not sure what else to try.
Are you sure the family would qualify for SNAP? Hector and Celia, they're not citizens yet, are they?
Non-citizens are eligible for SNAP if they're qualified immigrants. And since the Sanchezes are lawful permanent residents with more than 5 years in the United States, their immigration status shouldn't be a barrier. Of course, Roberto won't count as a member of their household since he's undocumented, right?
Right. So, but I ran their income and assets against the USDA guidelines, and they do qualify. It's just, I think here that our cultural differences are kind of a barrier too. I don't think that Celia believes that I really understand Hector's reluctance to apply for food assistance. And I guess it's true that I can't really imagine what it would be like to leave your country of origin, to make all these sacrifices for your family, and then still to not be able to provide for them in the way that you really want to be able to. I do think that Celia trusts me, though. I mean, at least enough to confide in me that she is getting so desperate that she wishes there was a way to apply for SNAP without Hector even knowing about it. It's just, when it comes to him, I'm just really not sure how to get through.
Have you tried other options for food assistance? Maybe at a church pantry or a mobile food bank?
Yeah, I do. And so Celia gets some food from the pantry at her church. It's just that, so also Hector has diabetes, and most of the food that is donated is really high sodium and high fat, and that's just not good for his diet and his weight management or his heart. It's really a paradox, you know? I mean, a lot of my clients who lack enough food are also struggle a lot with being overweight. It's almost like hunger and obesity are two sides of the same coin. I don't know. Anyway, what she needs most are additional resources to help her be able to purchase good food at the grocery store. She's a great cook, and she's learned so much about how to help Hector with his diet and his weight management. It's just that she can't put into practice what she's learned because she doesn't have enough resources. What can I do to connect the family to this critical resource?
You know, it sounds like you already know the answer, Julie. You need to work on building a trusting relationship with Hector so that you and he can partner together towards his goal of providing for his family. SNAP could be a tool that Hector uses to meet his family's needs, especially during this difficult time as they support Roberto as well. But to get there, you'll have to begin with Hector's strengths and reflect for him what you already said earlier about how hard he's worked for his family, how many sacrifices he's made, and how hard that has to be on him.
I know, you're right. It's just, that's been hard because he works so much, so he's hardly ever there when I visit the other members of the family. And I think the language barrier plays a role too. I mean, Hector speaks English, but he's reluctant to speak it with me a lot of the time. Maybe because he feels self-conscious about it, or maybe because Celia doesn't speak English very well. When she comes here to our office, I can use our interpreter, and that has really helped a lot with our relationship building. I've been able to speak with Alejandro some too. That's their younger son. He's been struggling quite a bit with depression and anxiety. I think a lot related to his frustrations. He watches his parents struggle, and he just wishes that there was more that he could do to be able to help them. He's talked with his mom and tried to really explain the system to her and how getting food assistance could help them, but when it comes to the dad, he's just not willing to challenge his dad's position on this.
That's funny. Sometimes people accuse immigrants of not adopting U.S. values, but Hector not wanting to use food stamps, I think, is pretty American. I think he's just reacting to the way that people expect him to.
What do you mean?
Well, I read in the paper yesterday that the state is getting a new vendor for the SNAP cards, the ones they use at grocery stores instead of coupons that people used to get. Well, anyway, they claim that's the reason for the new design change, but I think it sounds kind of fishy because, get this, the new design is going to be bright red and labeled food assistance.
Seriously? Can they do that?
Well, they say they can. The card SNAP recipients get now looks just like a regular credit card, and they swipe it like a regular credit card. Sometimes when I'm in the grocery store, standing in line next to people who use the WIC coupons, I see other customers just roll their eyes, but you don't get that problem with SNAP cards because, it's not that obvious. But if they change it to something bright red with that label, then I think it's definitely going to change all of that.
I haven't seen anything about this. Is it just a proposed change or has it already happened?
As far as I remember, the contract for the new card has already been signed, but the state privatized that function quite a long time ago. The article said that some legislators had problems with this, so they're going to want to hold a hearing about it and explore alternatives to the design.
That would be such a horrible move. I've had a hard enough time explaining to the Sanchez family that they deserve this help and that there's no shame in getting assistance when you need it without such an overt stigma attached to getting food aid. If the state moves to this scarlet letter to brand people in poverty, I'd probably have more clients who would go hungry to avoid being embarrassed. That makes me so angry, especially because Hector works so hard at his job and at managing his weight and his health. How can the state consider something like this?
It is maddening, and it often seems like policy changes like this are made by people who have very little understanding about what our clients' lives are actually like. I doubt that any of the policymakers who negotiated the new contract and revised design have any idea how much stigma there is in these communities and how hard Hector works to try to provide for his family. I wish that legislators had to live for a month on a food stamp budget so they could see how difficult it is to provide for your family's nutrition on so little money.
Hey, Julie, why don't you testify at the hearing about the SNAP cards? You could talk about the obstacles your clients face, about applying for government assistance, and how important nutrition is to good health. I could help you practice for your testimony. I testified once in college. I don't want to brag, but this happened when there was a bill to cut funding to the School of Social Welfare just because we offered a class in human sexuality. Yeah, I could definitely help you out if you want.
Do you think I could do a good job? I mean, what would I say? And I'd have to take vacation time, right? I mean, I can't go to the legislature as a part of work time.
Actually, Julie, I could ask for permission from the CEO for you to represent the organization at the hearing. We do lobby on some issues that matter to our programs through our state association, and this issue certainly falls under the broad concerns of policies that affect low-income families. If you're willing to go, I would be happy to make the request for paid leave on your behalf. I think it's a great idea, and it might make you feel better about having hit a bit of a brick wall with Mr. Sanchez. At least you'd be doing something. I wonder if Alejandro might be interested in going with you. Maybe he could even share something about how much stigma there is in his community already about using public assistance and how this move would just make it worse.
Well, I mean, he might. I think at least he'd be interested in going. He's been doing quite a bit of political action at the community college where he's taking classes, and he and I have had some really good conversations about how policy here in the United States is a lot different than how it's perceived in other countries. But I mean, how long do I speak, and where would I even go? What if they ask me really hard questions? This is pretty overwhelming, but I guess it does make me feel a little less hopeless. I mean, the idea of those bright red cards just makes me so mad.
Well, I had coffee with a social worker who works at Stand Up for Kids, this organization that puts up a lobby on that early childhood lobby every year. I could call her up, and I bet she'd have a lot of information about how the hearings go and how to prepare for it. She might even be able to meet you up there and help you figure out where to go. There should be information online about other states that have done something similar to this. and we can check it out. And seriously, I will listen to you practice every lunch break we have.
Okay, I'll do it. I mean, you're right, Susan. These policymakers have no idea how difficult my clients' lives are or how much it would pain someone like Mrs. Sanchez to be labeled as a charity case. I may not be able to convince the legislature to abandon that contract or go back to the old cards, but it would feel good to stand up for Mrs. Sanchez. I think about her every single time I'm at the grocery store and about how hard it must be for her not to be able to afford the food that she knows her husband and her children or her family needs. I'm going to keep trying to get her connected to other sources of food assistance, but I need to try to do something about this policy too.